Hey everyone, this is John from EastCoastArmory.com, and I'm here today with a project update video for this radio-controlled 1/6 scale Armortek Early Production German Tiger 1. Since the last project update video, a lot of progress has been made to the model's sprockets, the track, as well as some of the electronics have been fitted. We'll be going over in more detail the additions in this video. Before I could go ahead and start installing the track, I have to first get the idlers installed. Prior to the idlers installation, I need to go ahead and make some quick mods to them. The one mod has to do with the center portion of the idlers themselves. The idlers that you see on the Armortek 2015 version of the Tiger 1 features a all CNC'd aluminum idler. It's made from billet and is of very high quality, and just like with all their other wheels, are very nicely done and are more than robust for the job at hand. Because they are made out of billet and they're CNC'd, you're going to see some tooling marks to get the bell shape of the center portion of the idler wheel. This is present on both sides. The real Tiger 1, this component here was actually made out of cast metal, and to replicate the cast look and to improve the model, I have this wheel here, which is currently going through the procedure of adding the cast texturing. Once the cast texturing is complete and everything is all sanded away and nice and to the appropriate casting texture and the casting thickness, the component will get its coat of primer, base coat, and will be installed to the model. One interesting side note is that the original first batch Tiger 1s from Armortek featured an all-cast rear idler wheel and sprocket. Because of that, this procedure here is unnecessary, as the pieces have it naturally because they are, again, casted like the real model. And here are the idler wheels now all painted and ready for installation. Here you can see the cast texturing now completed and added to the center portion. Cast texturing is found on both the front and rear portion of the idler wheels, and this is done to both wheels. They have the identical procedure done to them. As you can see, the wheels have been primed and have also been painted with their base coat. Just like with the rest of the lower hull, I went ahead and added the airbrush weathering to all of the appropriate locations, as once these pieces get installed, adding the weathering to these parts will not be as easy as it is at this moment here. In addition to the idlers, the idler hubcaps have also been prepped and are ready for installation. The parts that you see here are all CNC'd out of aluminum and are literally stock. No mods are needed to be made to these parts, as they install perfectly out of box. They will simply be mounted to the idler wheels in the kit manner after the wheels are installed to the tank. And here goes the rear idler wheel now mounted to the model. The idler wheel installs with the standard Armortek setup, which is very easy and effective, as well as it installs effortlessly. The wheel itself features two ball bearings, which are on either side of the casing. The ball bearings really give the wheel a very nice roll, as you can see here, and also properly distribute the weight of the track once in operation. As for the retention, that's done with this single fastener located in the center and a CNC steel retention washer. The washer is pre-cut and is countersunk to allow the kit supplies countersunk fastener to thread directly into the center of the spindle. Red Loctite is used in order to prevent this wheel from backing out and getting loose over time and during operation. Just like with my other Armortek builds, prior to the installation of the wheel, a smear of grease was added to the spindle in the same manner which is done on the wheels for the same reasoning. This wheel here is awaiting the installation of the hubcap. However, if you bear with me, the hubcap has been installed on the opposite side of the model. This wheel here has its last component added and is complete and ready for the next step. Like I mentioned before, the hubcaps installed very easy, and no mods are needed to be made for the installation of this piece. The only addition I did was a little bit of Loctite to the fasteners to prevent them from loosening up over time. Moving our way to the tank sprockets, the sprockets that you see on the Armortek kit are laid out right here. You have here the main hubs. The hubs are unique in that they are separate from the teeth ring, which is very prototypical and very much like the real Tiger 1. In addition to the sprockets, you have here the early production style hubcaps. You have here taper brush locks to install the sprockets to the axles, like on all Armortek tanks. And here you have acorn fasteners for use for the detailing of the hubcaps. Another unique feature is the fact that the kit comes with photo etch. Now, the photo etch that you see here, these little straps, are used for the fastener retention plates, which are located around the sprocket rings. One thing that's also very unique or interesting is that the kit is a early production Tiger 1. However, the kit's photo etch has on it the retention plates for the star late pattern of sprockets. The hubcaps design were changed on the later versions of the Tiger 1, which went away from this domed appearance to a flat appearance with a star pattern of fasteners. That is where these retention plates are utilized. They are not utilized on this kit here and are going to be relegated to the spare parts bin. The sprockets that you see here have been partially started by myself, in that I went ahead and started adding the cast texturing to the component. Just like with the rear idler wheel in the previous scene, the sprocket main housing is actually comprised out of a single piece of billet CNC'd aluminum. The pieces are very strong, very durable, and are extremely well made. The only issue is that on the real Tiger 1, this component here would have been made out of cast metal, and so the tool marks of the CNC needed to have been deleted and smoothed flush with that of the cast texturing. With the cast texturing added, the sprocket's visual appearance is greatly improved, and the structure and strength is not compromised. With the cast texturing now completed, the sprockets will go into assembly, in which the tooth rings will be mounted on with the fasteners, and the photo etch retention washers will be added as well. And here are the sprockets now complete and ready for installation. As you can see, since the last scene, they have been completely assembled. All of the fasteners have been added, as well as the photo etch locking plates, which were described earlier. Here with the base coat on, you can see the cast texturing that has been added to the bell housings, which greatly helps the look of the sprocket compared to the kit original. The sprockets have been primed, painted with their base coat, and in this scene here have been added with their double tone weathering, which will again save time once the build progresses. For the installation, like all Armortek kits, the sprockets are installed to the main drive spindle with that of a taper brush lock. In addition to the taper brush lock, there is a steel key which gets installed into the piece, which locks everything in place and keeps it nice and firm. This setup is found on all Armortek tanks and works very well. And here, the tank is now ready for a test drive. As you can see, the tracks have been assembled and have been fitted to the tank. As for the track assemblies themselves, they are your standard current generation Armortek setup, in which you have a alloy cast aluminum track link, a steel chrome plated pin. Along with the track pin, there's a small little washer and a small little cotter pin in which everything is bent and retained in place. This setup is very durable and is very strong, and due to the cotter pins are actually extremely realistic and very closely matching that of the real tank. To get a better idea of what the track looks like, here goes a link fresh from the bag. As you can see, the link, it's all one piece, and the thread pattern is nicely rendered with deep wells, as well as a nice robust crosshatch section for the rigidity ribs. Now, as to point out, there are no mud slits found on these links. Due to the way the links are molded and the material that they're made in, the addition of the mud slits would weaken the track and may possibly cause tooth breakages when the model is in operation. Keep in mind, this tank is radio controlled and does need to perform. So the omission of the mud slits is a omission that is a compromise that needs to be made for a model of this size and weight. Also, to point out, there are no aftermarket tracks that I'm aware of that have the links with the mud slits already added. As for the pins themselves, here you can see the chrome-plated pins. The pins being chrome-plated is a nice feature and does prevent any type of rust or oxidation which can happen to these track pins, specifically since these pins are on the ground and are susceptible to moisture as well as dirt. Being chrome-plated does help with the longevity of the parts. As you can see, they come pre-drilled in order to put on the miniature cotter pin, which is a nice feature as you don't want to sit there and drill out all these holes on your kit. Here you can see the connecting components. We have the small washers, they're just basic steel washers, and the miniature cotter pins. Once the camera gets in focus, you can see the pin is an actual little miniature cotter pin. They get inserted into the hole and bent to shape and then snipped. One nice feature that the kit has is that in addition to the tracks, as you can see, both tracks are fully assembled. The kit also does supply you with an adequate amount of spare links. This is a nice feature in case a link or two may break over time and after wearing usage, you will have a sufficient supply of spares in order to replace and keep the tank up and running for years to come. In addition to the supplied spare track links, the links can also be purchased from Armortek in case the need be arises. Like I mentioned before, with the tracks on, I can now take the tank for a test drive. To test drive the tank, I quickly jury-rigged up the stock electronics in order to get the tank's hull up and running. The system that you see here is very, very, very crude and rudimentary and will greatly improve and advance as the build progresses. Starting with the option pack, this is the current 2015 Armortek electronics. This motion control module here actually replaces what would have been on the older sets 2 or 3 of the power boxes. The batteries go ahead and connect directly to the system, which then splices the voltage necessary to run all of the components as well as accessories. For the tank's powered by 2 12-volt lithium ion batteries. The Armortek kits are 24-volt powered, and to obtain 24 volts, you take 2 12-volt batteries, hook them up in series, which bumps up the voltage to 24 volt. As for the batteries themselves, if you notice, I've converted over to lithium-ion batteries. The lead-acid batteries, which I've used in my builds in the past, have been replaced as they were too problematic and were causing too much problems, namely with battery life as well as even runtime. With the lithium-ion batteries, basically all of those issues have been resolved. The lithium-ion batteries I use are from a company called Smart Battery. The website is found on the battery as well as listed below. Their batteries are extremely impressive, and I have been using their batteries, testing them on some of my other Armortek builds that I've done in the past, which were converted over, and so far seem to be real winners. Definitely recommended for anyone who's doing any large-scale RC model. The batteries themselves, being lithium-ion, are almost a fraction of the weight of a single lead-acid battery, which the weight savings will be translated for one, a lighter model, and also a model that will run longer as it's less weight it has to lug around. And on a model like an Armortek, which is already heavy to begin with, the extra weight savings from removing the lead acids with lithiums is greatly noted. Moving from the battery takes us to the main power switch. One nice feature that this new system has is that of a separate little switch box. In the older Armortek units, the switch was located on the power supply module, and that module was about 3/4 the size of this box here. That whole box would need to be fitted under a certain access point of the tank, namely a crew hatch or an engine hatch, in order to get access to the switch. This setup can complicate the interior layout as it's a fairly decent sized component that needs to be fitted into the tank somehow. With this setup here, it's a smaller unit which can be hid just about anywhere and placed anywhere inside the tank underneath a small hatch. As for the way it hooks up, it connects with a servo extension cord, which can easily be extended or even replaced with a longer cord if need be. Moving from the power cord takes us to the radio. The radio that you see here is just for testing purposes only, and this radio will not be used on this tank in its final form. Again, it's just for testing to get the tank up and running. And here I have the tank now off of the hydraulic lift and is running on its own power. So I'll take the tank for a quick little test drive. But before I do, let me turn the tank on. Like always, with all radio control tanks, you first turn on the radio. After the radio is on, you then turn on the tank. Now, one thing I like about the Armortek electronics, this is true for all of their setups, is that the button has a nice audible click, letting you know that the tank is on. In addition to the audible click, there is a green LED that lights up when everything is good, and if there's a problem, turns red. Hopefully, it turns green. And green it is. As you can see from the test run, the tank performed very well, both for on and a little bit for the off-road. The suspension is working as per design, and the track's tension seems to be right where it needs to be. Now, it's important to note that once the addition of the top deck as well as the turret begins to be fitted and mounted, the tank's weight will begin to increase, which will probably need for some slight adjustments of the idler. However, this is a great start for the build itself. With the model now running, it will now go back onto the hydraulic lift, to which then I can start working on the tank's interior fitting mounts, namely the subfloors, as well as the other machinery mounts and details which are to follow next. And with that, that completes this 1/6 scale project update video for this Armortek radio-controlled early production German Tiger 1. If you like this video, stop by and like us on Facebook, and don't forget to check out eastcoastarmory.com for more 1/6 and 1/16 scale builds and detail components. Thank you.